Let me ask you this question as a starter for 10, right? All of us have lived with our mothers pretty much for all of our lives, or nearly all of us have lived with our mothers for nearly all of our lives. If you were to write down, truthfully, every story that you could accurately remember about your mother, about something she did or something she said, truthfully in your heart, without making up anything, how many individual stories do you think you could remember about your own mother? Have a think, be honest. How many stories do you think you could write down?
From birth to now?
As many stories as you could possibly remember.
Many, over 30.
Yeah.
Over 30.
And probably more when you think about it.
Yeah, well,
the longer you
go on.
I'd say about the same.
I'd say about maybe around 100 stories of my mother. What about you? Anyone want to go above 100? Right. Now that's important. Remember that your mother is someone you've lived with your entire life. And you can only remember roughly about 100 stories, if you're honest. But, ladies and gentlemen, we are asked to believe by the Muslim community that the Hadith reporters, such as Aisha bint Abu Bakr, Abu Huraira, Abdullah ibn Umar, Anas ibn Malik, and Abdullah ibn Abbas, and Jabir ibn Abdullah, and Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, and Salama, remembered, ladies and gentlemen, thousands of stories about Muhammad. Thousands. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let's be clear about this. If someone said to you that do you believe that it is possible that someone can remember in real time 1,000 individual stories and more about anyone?
Not even the alphabet.
Nobody can. Now, all of these people were human beings. All of these people were normal human beings, and their hadith reports received no divine protection of any kind. And yet we're supposed to believe, ladies and gentlemen, that they remembered over 1,000 stories about Muhammad. I put it to you that there's only one way that anyone comes up with 1,000 stories about anyone else. They lie. They make things up. They create fictions and tell fictions. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the number of reports that are going back to these characters that I mentioned, when you take away the repetitions, are these. Abu Huraira, up to 1,700. Abdullah ibn Umar, around 1,000. Anas ibn Malik, 1,200. Aisha bint Abu Bakr, 1,200. Abdullah ibn Abbas, 1,100. Jabir ibn Abdullah, 1,000. Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, 800. There's only one realistic way that these people could produce that many stories about Muhammad. They lied. Because human memory doesn't work like that, ladies and gentlemen. If you don't believe me, ask yourself honestly how many stories you could write about your own mother or father. You will not be able to come up with 1,000 stories. 100 if you're really good.
Yeah.
Furthermore, ladies and gentlemen, Muslims might like to appeal to the idea of good memory. And the reason why they make this appeal is because they'll point out things like there are Muslims that have remembered the entire Quran. And they're right. There are Muslims that have remembered the entire Quran, but the way that they did so is called active memory. It's by repetition, again and 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 again, and that's how they remember the Quran. That's the same way that the apostles of Jesus remembered the teachings of Jesus, because Jesus repeated them again and again and again and again and again and again, and then he sent the apostles out to repeat those teachings again and again and again and again and again. But, ladies and gentlemen, living memory doesn't work like that. Living memory doesn't work like active memory. Like the black taxi cab drivers who have to learn all the routes of the road before they can get a black taxi cab. Living memory is mostly forgotten. For these people at the source of these stories to have remembered that many stories about Muhammad, they would have had to spend their entire lives remembering their entire lives on every memory again and again and again and again and again. And the suggestion that they actually did that is completely ridiculous. But, ladies and gentlemen, it gets worse. Oh, it gets worse. So, ladies and gentlemen, our earliest Hadith compilations, amongst the Hadith compilations, and I want to invite you to move in a bit. Amongst Hadith compilations, the highest Hadith grade that any Hadith can have is called a Mutawatir Hadith. A Muwatta Hadith. Muwatta. And a Muwatta Hadith is considered to be secure because its angle of transmission is multifold. 10 people remembering at every link in the Isnad chain. That's why they think it's reliable, ladies and gentlemen. But, ladies and gentlemen, it would interest you to know that less than 400 hadiths are of the grade Muwatta. Less than 400. What's that telling you? It's telling you that most of the other hadiths have less than that. If they're Sahih, they might have 3 or 5. But most hadiths continue through a chain where there's only one narrator. These are hadiths. Now, this is a problem, ladies and gentlemen. If your earliest sources are suspected of lying, as they are, and we have good reason to think that they were, and as the Shia even accuse Aisha of lying, and as the Sunnis accuse the Shia of lying in their hadiths, in their hadith sources, we have good reasons to question, ladies and gentlemen, these hadiths. But here's the other problem. The earliest compilations of hadith come centuries after Muhammad. So, for example, the Al-Muwatta of Ibn Malik is 760 AD. Muhammad died in 632 AD. That's over 100 years later. The Musannaf of Abd al-Razak is dated to 820 AD. That's over 200 years after Muhammad. The Musannaf of Ibn Abi Shayba was dated to 828 AD. Muhammad died in 632 AD. Imagine If we Christians were coming to this park and saying that the Gospel of John was written 200 years after Jesus, what do you think that the Muslims would be telling us? They would be using the late date as a proof of unreliability. Ladies and gentlemen, their hadith collections are all late. The Kitab of Al-Zud is dated to 797 AD, and these are their earliest compilations. The Jami of Mamar ibn Rashid is dated at the latest 785 AD. So the earliest compilations of hadiths are later than the time of Muhammad. The origins of their hadith are suspected as lying by Shia to Sunni and Sunni to Shia, and by anyone who can think and use common sense, because those numbers are clearly fictional numbers. But, ladies and gentlemen, it gets worse. When you look at the dates of the earliest copies, the extant manuscripts of the codexes of their hadiths, listen to how late they are. The Al-Muwatta can't be dated. The earliest copy, codex of that book is in the 9th century. The Musnaf of Abd al-Raziq al-Sana is from the 11th century. The Musnaf of Abi Shayba is from the 10th century. The Sahifa of Haman ibn Munabi is from the 9th century. The Kitab of Al-Zud is from the 12th century. The 12th. Now, why is that a problem, ladies and gentlemen?
Why?
When you look at the earliest copies of the Bible, the earliest copies of the Bible date from the 4th century. Codex Vaticanus, Codex Sinaiticus, Codex Alexandrinus. These date from the 4th century. Why? Can anyone hesitate a guess? They date from the 4th century because at that time the Roman Empire became sympathetic to the Christian religion. And so they had the means to produce the full Bibles and preserve the full Bibles. Now, ladies and gentlemen, think about it. Muslims boast how Islam had an empire from the 7th century. Why, if they had an empire from the 7th century, with all the resources of an empire, do we not see complete, intact and preserved copies of their hadiths and Quran from the 7th century? Why are they all so late, ladies and gentlemen? That tells us that someone has been fiddling with the books, ladies and gentlemen. The early hadiths already acknowledge that Umar burnt the earliest copies of the Quran so that his version of the Quran could be the one that was used by the Muslim community. The hadiths report that Muhammad forbade the writing of anything other than the Quran. And so even the writings of the Quran is not sunnah, it's bid'ah, and it's late bid'ah. And so we have reasons to suspect that the origins of the hadiths were liars and unreliable. We have reason to believe the preservation of the hadiths were not grounded and sound. And we have reason to believe that the early Muslim community had the resources to preserve all of their texts and manuscripts. ladies and gentlemen. Now, in the midst of this cauldron in which the hadiths were being written, Muslims were competing with Muslims. And how do you settle an argument if you're a Muslim and you're arguing about something with another Muslim? What do? You appeal to Muhammad. And so you end up with hadiths justifying all different manner of different practices amongst the Muslim community. Which is why Sharia law is no such thing. It's different Sharia laws depending on who you believe. They don't have a divine law given to them by God. They have a divine law ascribed to God by a bunch of scholars who came centuries after Muhammad. Now, ladies and gentlemen, here's an example of why we know hadiths were being made up. There are hadiths that testify that in the 7th century in the Middle East, that the Injil and the Torah spoke about Muhammad and about his companions. Right. So in the 7th century, according to the hadiths, there are Injils and Torahs that prophesy about Muhammad. Do you not think, ladies and gentlemen, that the Muslim community might have had every reason to preserve that Injil and that Torah so that they could show it to the Jews and the Christians and go, hey, look, we've got a copy of the original Injil and the original Torah, and it prophesies about Muhammad? Don't you think they would have done that? Bearing in mind that that Injil and Torah was the reason given in hadiths for some people to become Muslim. So don't you think they would have preserved it for other Jews and Christians? So where is it? Why isn't it there? Why isn't there so much as a scrap of evidence that it exists? I'll tell you why. Because it never existed and the hadith was made up. The hadith is a lie. And those hadiths, whoever they go back to, was also lying, ladies and gentlemen. Furthermore, ladies and gentlemen, here's another proof that the hadiths were being made up. Here's another proof as to why hadiths were being made up. So if you look at the call to prayer, the Adhan, which, by the way, amplified Adhans should be illegal across Europe. But, ladies and gentlemen, I'll just give you an example of the hadiths that talk about other scriptures. Musnad Ahmed Hadith 22964 says this: the qualities of the Prophet Muhammad and his followers in the Torah include: they humble themselves when they pray, they safeguard others' wealth, they fast and give to charity, they stand in prayer at night, and they love and serve others. The hadiths are saying that the Torah speaks about Muhammad's companions. Why didn't the Muslims preserve that Torah? The reason why they didn't preserve it is because it never existed, and Musnad Ahmed is reporting a fabricated hadith. Here's another one, ladies and gentlemen. In Sunad al-Darimi Hadith 2583, the messenger of Allah is described in the Torah with the qualities of bringing people together, having a gentle disposition, and being compassionate and forgiving. The hadiths are saying the Torah describes Muhammad. Why did they not preserve that Torah to show to the Jews where Muhammad was? I'll tell you why. Because the hadith is being made up and such a Torah never existed, ladies and gentlemen. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let me give you another example. In the Adhan, the Sunnis and the Shia have different Adhans. They don't have the same Adhan. But the split between the Sunni and the Shia comes after Muhammad's death. But, ladies and gentlemen, the Adhan was given when Muhammad was alive. So, ladies and gentlemen, if it was given when Muhammad was alive, why do the Sunni and the Shia have different Adhan? I'll give you some examples of the Adhans and their differences. The phrase, and I'm going to butcher the Arabic, so if you're an Arabic speaker, I apologize, but the phrase, Ashahadu ana aliyan walayu Allah, is not included in the Sunni Adhan, but it is included in the Shia Adhan. The phrase Allahu Akbar with a fourfold repetition is included in the Sunni Adhan and the Shia Adhan. But the phrase Hayya Allah Kara al-Mal is not included in the Sunni Adhan, but is included in the Shia Adhan. The words As-salatu khairun min an-nawm is included in the Sunni Adhan, but not the Shia Adhan. The reason for these differences is because the Sunnis and the Shias are using different hadiths. And the reason why they're using different hadiths is because the Shias are saying that the sources of the Sunni hadith were liars and were untrustworthy. And the Sunnis are doing the same to the Shia. So we have good reasons as Christians to doubt the hadiths, to doubt the reliability of the hadiths. I'll finally conclude with one more example. There's one hadith in Sahih al-Bukhari that talks about an examination given by a Roman emperor. I think it was Herodotus or Herodotus maybe, to Arabs who knew Muhammad. He was a contemporaneous emperor to Muhammad. And in that hadith, it makes the mistake of describing private correspondence of the emperor to a friend. How could anyone in the Isnad chain have discovered the private correspondence and the private musings of an emperor in his own room? It's clearly a false hadith that was made up to disillusion Christians who in the 8th and 9th century found themselves under a Roman emperor, under an Islamic caliphate, having been Roman citizens. The idea of the hadith is to go, look, even your past emperors, your past great emperor wanted to become a Muslim, because in this hadith, this emperor decides that he wants to be a Muslim. But ladies and gentlemen, that hadith, as well as being ridiculous for saying that an emperor, a Roman emperor, wanted to become a Muslim, talks about private correspondence of the emperor. How could anyone even in an Isnad chain have gained access to that information? It was clearly a lie. Someone in the Isnad chain made it up, and it is now considered Sahih. So I've given you multiple reasons to demonstrate that Sahih hadiths and Muwatta hadiths are not reliable. They are all doubtful. Any questions, ladies and gentlemen?
On the same topic.
Yeah, on the topic. Going once? Questions on the topic?
God bless you, sir.
Going twice. If you come with me, I'm going to go a drink if you want to come.
I've got a 3
All
hours road
right.
back.
Peace be with you,
Next
brothers.
time, definitely.
Peace be with you.
Peace be with you, brother.
Final chance? Okay, any other questions?
Is baptism, is it salvation issue?
No, a person can be saved without baptism. However, this idea that baptism communicates salvific grace and that that's a division between Catholics and Protestants is a false description. Lutherans believe and Anglicans believe that baptism communicates salvific grace, but it's not necessary for salvation. But if you can be baptized, you should be baptized. If you can't be baptized because of some extraordinary circumstance, like for instance, the Kurdish Muslim girl who communicated with me 2 weeks ago, who's living right in the middle of a Muslim family, right in the middle of a Muslim city, who communicated with me and says that she's become a Christian and she can't be baptized, she is still saved even though she can't be baptized. Any other questions?
Can you be baptized by anybody?
Let someone else ask a question and then I'll come back to you. By the way, guys, I can't see you, so you're going to have to speak up if you want to answer a question because I'm blinded by the light. So any questions? Going once?
Because the sinner beside Jesus on the cross, he said, Jesus, where would I be today?
Yeah.
Without being baptized, he said today, you'd be
Yeah.
in paradise.
Okay, any questions, ladies and gentlemen? Going once? Going twice? Right, anyone who wants to come with me for a cup of tea, you're more than welcome to come and join me.
Being baptized by anybody.
Regarde, ton thé là, vu que c'est pas,